Well, welcome to another drawing prompts from our 200 drawing prompts book. Today we're up to drawing prompt 147, which is Locomotive. And here's our drawing. If you want to see how we did it, stay tuned. Well, I thought I'd let you know what I'm doing here. I'm not going to put you through this whole thing. What I'm doing now is just a kind of preliminary drawing, figure out what I'm going to draw. Trying to fit everything on the page. I've got the whole, the whole top of the train here. I got it in somewhat of a perspective because we're kind of looking down. This is closer to us and it gets a little bit smaller. So I got I'm leaving the coal car off, and because I don't want to make the drawing too small, and I've got the cow catcher. Cow catcher here comes all the way to the edge of the page, and then I thought this cow catcher was going to be simple to draw. It isn't. Then I got the railroad tracks. They're in, they're in perspective. The whole thing tapers it back to the back here. Now the wheels are ellipses, just freehand. I don't have the tools to make an ellipse mechanically. But that's not the kind of drawing we're going for anyway. So all I'm doing here is trying to block this thing out. Like yesterday's drawing, I already had this done when we started, and it still took us an hour and 20 minutes. But a few people watched it, so I guess it was okay. I mean, the average person didn't watch the whole thing, of course. Yeah, I think I got that right. This. The Hooterville Cannonball. I think that's too tall. Well, I think that's right. Okay, I'll bring you back when I get some more of this blocked out, and we'll keep working. So I got all this. I'm not putting the fine detail in now. I just got to figure out where the fine detail is going to go, because when you're putting fine detail in, you don't really have the luxury of sitting back, and looking at the big picture. And it's got to this is what we're looking at here it's a big slider mechanism. This is the piston, and the piston shoots out here, and it pushes against a it's pushing against a big block here. Then that big block is attached. So this thing comes out like this. And then these are the drive wheels here. Okay, that's the kind of thing I'm trying to do right now. Then the wheels themselves have an inner lip. And that inner lip is on the inside of the tracks. So if you can see right here, see the inner lip is going on the inside of that track. Of course, you can't see so I can do the same thing over here on this one. And there's okay, I'll keep working on this and come back in a minute or so. Well, we just drew this piston. Got one of these on the other side also. Not satisfied with it though. I don't think it's big enough. Kind of should kind of hang over the wheels a little bit. With all the power from that goes to the wheels comes out of this piston. And by the time this model of locomotive came out, the piston was it came both ways. There was a piston in the center, and steam would blow in this side to draw it back, draw it that way, and then steam would come in this way and push it back the other way. And later on, they actually came up with steam engines that had a high and low cycle. You get a lot more power out of them and a lot more efficient. they'd have high pressure steam, like 1,200 pounds or something, 900-degree heat or steam. It's one of the things we kind of don't think about, but steam is, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius. But that is at atmospheric pressure at 14 psi, 15 psi. At higher pressures, the higher pressures, the steam is much hotter. And the hotter it is, obviously the more the more power it has. Steam engines were, were practically the catalyst for this industrial age that we came through in the 18th, 19th, and 20th century. Because the scientists, I screwed that up again. See, I'm talking too much and not paying attention. That little thing that little slider, I had it pointing up. That thing needs to follow the lines of the rest of the mechanics here. Is that better? I think so. But I started building trains. They could build models and stuff. I mean, everybody knew that they had stationary steam engines, and they were pumping out mines with them. It didn't take a very great leap of imagination to realize that, hey, you could attach these giant engines to vehicles, and they'd be self-propelled and very powerful. Well, the sticking point was, the models were fairly easy to build, but full-size trains have these giant parts, giant cast iron steel parts. So they weren't, of course, they weren't nearly as big when the originals. They weren't nearly as big as, you know, the one that would come later, but even smaller versions. And they didn't have railroad tracks. I mean, they did have tracks. They had tracks that they pulled mines, ore from the mines and stuff, but they didn't have specially built railroad tracks. So anyway, the technology had to kind of catch up. But what I was going to say is when they finally started building these steam engines, they had to learn about thermodynamics. That was a period of time when the laws of thermodynamics were formulated. I mean, I'm certainly no expert, but they weren't experts either. But they found out quick that they needed to know about heat transfer, entropy, the difference between heat and temperature, and pressure. So and once they had all that science figured out on steam engines, it became possible then to use that same information to build internal combustion engines, primarily diesels. And ironically, diesels are what in the 1920s and 30s, diesel-powered trains began. They're actually diesel electric. What they did is they had a couple of big diesel engines that drove giant AC generators. Then that AC current was converted into DC, and then the trains themselves were powered by giant DC electric motors. In Europe, though, they used electric, a lot of electric trains, running on power lines. And kind of funny, the original like subways and that kind of stuff in New York City, they tried running them with steam engines. Well, that was a stupid idea, which they discovered. Kind of try to draw these spokes. Try to get the center of the wheels here. I'll try to figure out how to do these spokes, and I'll come back. I think I figured out how I'm going to do the spokes here. I know that I got to have a spoke where these pusher rods are. So I'll start there. I don't even know if they're called spokes, because they aren't really, spokes. These are steel wheels. Which is steel wheels, that's the reason. Trains have trouble going up hills. It's not because they don't have the power, it's that their wheels slip. And you can kind of prove that to yourself if you just imagine a train on a vertical surface. It would have no traction at all and just fall straight down. But as you incline it down towards level, the friction on the wheels increases until it reaches a level where it's maximum. Maximum friction. I might have to do that and overlook it. It looks like I don't know what it looks like, but it doesn't look like spokes. Gotta make them more symmetrical. Well, let me fix this wheel. I'll get back. I'm getting this drawing down, but I think my cabin here is too short. And so I'm going to change it. It just doesn't look right. I mean, I put, you know, I went with perspective, but it just doesn't look right. So I'm gonna make it a little taller. My hands are shaking. I was just outside feeding my cats. I got feral cats. I'm such a softie. I got some feral cats that I feed. They're feral, but I caught them with an animal trap. Took them to the vet, had them fixed. So I think it would be probably unethical to feed them if you didn't plan on having them fixed. Just really going to cause them more problems because they can have a couple of litters a year. The Hooterville Cannonball is a train, a mythical train that plied the rails between Pixley and Hooterville in the 1960s. Television show called Petticoat Junction. Actually, you know, when it was on, I didn't watch it much. I didn't watch it. I probably missed the first season because it was kind of a spin-off of the Beverly Hillbillies in a way. But it was based on the premise that between Hooterville and Pixley, the main railroad shut that line down, kind of blocked it at both ends. But then the two engineers that operated the train, they were retired, so they just kept running the train, and that was the Hooterville Express. I guess they called it Express because it was, it was a express between those two cities, those two towns. Well, between those two towns, Hooterville and Pixley, was a hotel called the Shady Rest, and it was run by Kate. And had Kate had, I think, 3 daughters, and one of the workers was, or one of the staff was Uncle Joe. He's one of those, kind of lazy guys that was always scheming, like the Sanford and Son character. And he was always scheming to he was really comical. But I don't know, it's kind of a neat thing to, this whole railroad and the Shady Rest were totally isolated from the rest of the world. All they had was this train that ran between the two towns. No roads. I think the two engineers, I think they were named Clyde and Floyd, or Earl and Floyd. I don't know. But as the show progressed, they had Uncle Joe. I think the show kind of started to, the show, I think, began, the reason they call it Petticoat Junction is because of the girls. But as the show progressed, it was less and less about them. and more about Uncle Joe and the various customers of the Shady Rest. Kate was the owner and the manager, and I think the actress was Bea Benaderet. You probably remember her as the Jethro's mother on the Beverly Hillbillies. So they had that whole they built up that whole world with Green Acres, and which is another good show. Green Acres, they actually, made some guest appearances. And Sam Drucker's store, that was part of the series. So Sam Drucker and his store actually contributed to 2 different series. And of course the whole thing ended. I mean, the show's very popular. It's like the Beverly Hillbillies and Green Acres, but that network, I think it was CBS, decided to get out of the rural comedy business and get to be a little bit more hip. So they basically dropped the show for no reason, because it was still popular. Same with Green Acres. Well, I think we've done about enough damage here. Let's see if we can't totally ruin it with ink. The detail is so fine, I don't know if this ink's going to work, but I mean, it doesn't cost us anything. We mess it up, who cares? I thought this cow catcher, I don't know what its real purpose is. I want to, you look it up, put it in the comments. What's the purpose of a cow catcher? I don't know, maybe it was for snow. Maybe it was for buffalo. Well, how these steam locomotives work, of course, they originally ran on coal because they were kind of invented, or some controversy about where they were actually invented, because it's like a lot of inventions. wasn't really invented, it was developed over time. I mean, the invention itself, I mean, in the 1700s, in the in the 18th century, which would be the 1700s, I mean, it was obvious to everybody that you could put a steam engine if you could put a steam engine on wheels, would be a good thing. It became, I mean, that was an obvious conclusion. The hard part was the actual engineering of that, making that happen. And one of the engineering problems was the fact that boilers blew up. You know, if you pressurize a boiler to 500 psi, it's probably going to blow up. But if you didn't pressurize it, you wouldn't get it, you don't get any efficiency from your engine, from your steam engine. Well, the solution they came up with was, you can see here on the drawing, this right here is probably the water drum here, and it had a sight glass on it because you don't want it to run out of water. But in here was the firebox in this part of the engine. And then in this part of the engine was the boiler. And it wasn't just a big tank filled with water. What happened was with the firebox, the coal or oil or wood was burned here, and then it went through tubes. And there were tubes running through here. And then the fire would go through those tubes, and then finally out the smokestack. So by having those tubes, you could fill those tubes with water, and then you could run the pressure up to, modern boilers. They run the pressure up to like 2,000 psi. And the pressure be 2,000 psi. I don't know what the equivalent temperature is, but it's like 1,200 degrees. So you got steam, and at that point it's not really even steam. It's the, we think of steam as that cloudy white stuff, but that's when steam gets to 1,200 degrees. It isn't that smoky white stuff anymore. It's clear. And that caused more problems because now, at least with a big boiler, you could, you didn't have as much problem with, you still had problems with it, but it wasn't as bad. And that is scaling. You know, these tubes that run through the boiler there, they'd scale up, you know, because they're putting hard water through them, and that heat causes the in reaction to the chemical reaction with the calcium in the water, cause the tubes to cake up with calcium scale. Now, ships that were using boilers, you know, back in the day, there's still some ships that use boilers. I mean, most ships have converted to either diesel, electric, nuclear, straight diesel for most commercial ships. Diesel electric for military ships. But the problem with when they had steamships is that they'd use salt water in the boiler, and so they had to stop the ship every now and then to desalt the boiler, because the boiler would fill up with salt. It's kind of a subtle detail, but you notice that this part of the smokestack is, the line here is curving down, and then up here at the top I have it curving up. So that's telling anybody that's looking at this that their eye level is, you know, is looking at like this. So you're looking at, it's going to look down here and it's going to look up here. I don't know why these smokestacks are on the old time steam locomotives. I don't know why they're shaped like that. It's probably there's some reason. I probably knew it at one time. I forgot. This is the bell. And the bell's just got a rope. I'll put that rope in after I draw the rest of it. Where I was saying that the one of the limiting factors is the incline rate of these trains. And this tank right here, now I could be wrong, and somebody would maybe tell me if I am wrong, but I believe this tank right here actually carried sand. And had to be up high like this. Because then that sand could be released right here. And it will flow down this flow down this pipe right here. So the sand would come down this pipe and it would drop right on the rail on this drive wheel. And that's how they get traction in on a hill, or increase the traction on a hill. Or snow. That 3 right there is on the Hooterville Cannonball. Okay, I'll keep filling this in and I'll come back. Doing the wheels. This video is going to be late. It's already 10 o'clock. I've been drinking coffee. So my hands are shaking more than usual. But I'm not worried about it. I think my hands always shake, even when I was a kid. I wasn't so lazy. I think I'd learn how to draw ellipses. Now, if you want to make this drawing look more like a blueprint, really accurate, you could draw it on a drafting table. But that's not what I was going for here. I want it to look more organic. Hand drawn. My sample drawing I'm looking at, you can see, doesn't have a lot of detail. But nobody knows what the Hooterville cannonball looks like anyway, so I can ad-lib some. But I want to get the colors right, so I got this sample picture. Well, these wheels are the most painful part, so I'm going to go ahead and do them first. I get my hand right so it's not shaking. I have to lay it down on the table. Okay, I'll come back when I start working on the mechanism. Now this is kind of what my eye is drawn to in this picture, and this is this mechanism right here that makes the train work. So it's got to kind of be logical. Probably not anatomically correct, but at least when you look at it, if you care, you can figure it out. This right here is the lever that operates the valve that opens and closes the valves to the piston and lets steam in. So that thing rocks back and forth. This is a relief valve right here. Comes up here. And this is a slider mechanism we were looking at. So that's the slider. And this is the big bracket that slides on that slider. It's the back of the slider. Then the piston goes back and forth this way, and this is the piston rod. And it pushes this big propulsion deal. And then the same thing down here. And behind this, there's another water tank. You can just barely see it. And this is the sand leveler. There's a timing rod here. Goes back to the wheel. And then through all this mechanism, you can just barely see the wheel on the other side. Okay, I'll keep working. Well, time to add a little color to our drawing. kind of an interesting story. How, I said that the invention of the steam engine ushered in a kind of a scientific revolution in thermodynamics. It all started, and the story is that it all started when a guy at an arsenal was boring out gun barrels, and he noticed they got hot when you did that, and that the amount of heat that was put into the barrel was equivalent to the amount of work it took to bore the barrel. In other words, if they worked the barrel hard, made more heat than otherwise. Well, of course, that's logical, but smart people see that, and they don't just say, well, that's logical. They say, well, what does that mean? That means that heat, energy, and work are all equivalent. And so what that told the people making steam engines is that if you want your steam engine to make do a lot of work, measured in watts, I think, then you got to put a lot of heat into it. Now we think, if you want to make your steam engine go fast, you got to make the pressure in the boiler hotter. You got to make the pressure in the boiler more. You got to have more PSI, and that's true. But remember that the one-to-one relationship with pressure and temperature. The hotter it is, the more pressure it's going to be. So you can think in terms of the pressure or the temperature. But what that did was they realized that to get a lot of heat, or to get a lot of energy, we're going to have to, can't just keep making bigger and bigger steam engines. You had to heat them up more and take them to higher pressures, until finally it got to be ridiculous with the steam turbines. Those pressures were up to 3,000 psi. The drawback for these steam locomotives, of course, was they required water, which limited their use in arid climates. So once diesel and diesel electric became practical, they began to switch. Of course, these things have a long lifespan, so it took many, many years. to replace them. Steam is has been almost completely replaced in nautical applications. Everything's going to diesel, and they're just big diesel engines with these giant pistons. The U.S. used to have a steam powered aircraft carrier. I don't know if they still do. Well, that does it for drawing prompt 147. Today we drew the Hooterville cannonball because the drawing prompt was locomotive. We took our time and tried to get as much detail as we could. I got a photograph here of the Hooterville cannonball, and we use that as a guide for the colors. Our sample picture didn't have very much detail. Okay, thanks for watching. Oh, we got to see what we got tomorrow. Tomorrow we got something imaginary, and that will be drawing prompt 148. So see you tomorrow.